Welcome to Life Church Wimslow. We're a group of friends from across Cheshire East who are on a journey of faith and friendship. And together we're learning to love God, to love people and love life to the full. The way we live that out is through 3 channels. Live streams like this, where we join online with people from all over the world. Then there's Life Locals, when we join with friends in a kind of in-person watch party and we enjoy live stream together in a home. Check out our website for more details of a Life Local near you. And thirdly, there's our gatherings at the Rex Cinema in Wimslow when we all come together in one place. In addition, we get together regularly on Sundays in a local park or coffee bar to catch up as well. Throughout the month, we do life together in life groups in people's homes. There's 3 to choose from right now. Each one has its own flavour and each group is welcoming, friendly and open for you to be yourself and really connect with friends on a deeper level. Our live streams go live every Sunday. We meet together online at 10:15 for just 30 minutes on Facebook Live, on YouTube and on our website at lifechurchwimslow.org. All the information and email addresses to get in touch are on our website. But hey, right now, get ready to connect, be blessed and enjoy life with us.
Good morning and welcome to today's live stream. My name's Rachel and I'm joined by one of the youngest members of the church, Isabella, my daughter. She's currently distracted by the light in the window. She might turn around, give you a look in a second. It's so good to have you with us wherever you're joining us from, whether that be Wimslow or further afield. If you could let us know you're here by a thumbs up or a comment, that would be greatly appreciated. Many of us are actually meeting today in small groups with coffee and a catch-up afterwards in different homes across Cheshire East. We call these our Life Local groups. If this is something that you would like to get involved in, please drop us a text or a message. Last Sunday it was so good to see those of you who were able to make it at the Rex Cinema in Wimslow. It was so nice to see those of us that we've not seen in a while. If you weren't, however, able to make it, here's a short clip of what went on last week.
The Lord bless you and keep you, make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you bless you and keep you. May
If for whatever reason you didn't make it, we will be back at the Rex on the 5th of September, so that's the first Sunday of the month. So put it in your diary now, so you don't miss that. And for today, we have the last part of Paul's series on rebuilding when life falls apart. We also have a story by the way that God transformed the life of a young man called Rich. But first, we have a song by Biglife Worship called King of My Heart.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. Good. Oh, let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good. You're good. Oh, 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 let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You're good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. You're never gonna let me down. No. You're never gonna let me down. No. You're never gonna let me down. 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 And you're never gonna let me down. 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 We declare you're never gonna let me. Oh, we believe you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me
Come on, lift up a shout in this place. Woo! So, Lord, we celebrate the fact that you'll never let us down. You will just never let us down, and that's good truth. We rejoice in the fact that you are good. You can say that over and over, that you are good.
I was very insecure, and alcohol just did such a superb job. It made me feel confident. My name's Rich, this is my story. Did well at school, was quite hard working. Hit teenage years and the teenage syndrome came in, and it made me think that's when people like me. They like me when I'm drunk. I stopped going to church when I was somewhere around 13, 14. As a teenager, I did still ask those questions. I did wonder, why are we here? What's life all about? But the picture I had picked up of any type of God figure was one who definitely disapproved of me and disapproved of my way of life. So it all started to unravel when I woke up one morning. I'd been on a just standard night the night before, gone to the pub, couple of beers. Woke up the next morning in agony, didn't know what was going on. Ended up in hospital, put on a ward, tubes all over the place, and I was very scared. I was told I had this thing called severe acute pancreatitis, which basically meant my body was eating itself. And I had a 50-50 chance of survival. And I really didn't know where I was going to go if I did die. And I really was questioning, what sort of life have I led and what legacy am I leaving? I'm then in and out of hospital quite a lot for the next 3 years. Tragically, my eldest brother committed suicide New Year's Eve 2006. There are not really adequate words to describe the feeling. I gave up, really. I was like, do you know what, this is too tough and too painful. There was one girl on my course, a girl called Caris. She was a vicar's daughter, really. But she was also like, she was normal. Something in me just said, you should go and meet up with her. And so I texted her and arranged a night out, and I just blurted out my life story, really. And Caris was just very patient and very kind. But she shared her faith as well. She talked about Jesus, and she talked about him in a way that it was clear to me as I observed her life, it was clear to me, this makes a difference. I ended up going on holiday with another mate called Pete. We were island hopping in Croatia, and I thought I'd try something out. Every time as we came into the port, every island, I was going to pray, keep us safe. So that's what I did. And we got to about the third or fourth island, and I looked back, and I was like, do you know what? We've been kept safe. That's interesting. We ended up having this conversation, me and Pete. In that conversation, I said, do you know what, mate? I'm a Christian. And that's when I became one. It's when I owned it. And the thing was, Pete accepted me. I'd always thought he'd reject me as a friend, which was all my perception and not the reality at all. If Jesus is real, and if he actually reveals to us who God is, because he is in himself fully God and fully man, it changes everything. He doesn't wait for me to be good and nice and kind. He takes the moment that I'm most ashamed of, and at that moment he says, there, you're worth dying for.
And welcome to the last part 3 of Rebuilding When Life Falls Apart. Today this is called Rubble Trouble, and I'll explain that in a few minutes' time. Well, we've been following the stories of 3 courageous men who were called by God to lead the rebuilding of Jerusalem after the Babylonians had crushed God's people and destroyed their temple and nation. They were given special favour from the king that had held them captive for many years to return to Jerusalem. And if you want to know more of the story, check out the first 2 parts on YouTube on Life Church Wimslow's channel if you missed those. So Zerubbabel returned and rebuilds the house of God. It took him 23 years to do that with a team of over 40,000 people. Then Ezra followed and rebuilds the worship and training in the things of God. He helps the people rebuild. Well, he helps them rebuild internally. He deals with their heart issues, and he finishes his job in just 1 year. Now, maybe you're thinking, great, Paul, but how does this relate to my life right now in 2021? Well, this story reminds us that God is in control of the most broken circumstances, and he can fix, he can rebuild anything. A broken home, a broken church, even your broken heart. He can fix it. So stay tuned for the next hero to take his place in this story. So it's around 445 years before Jesus arrives on the earth. The house of God is rebuilt, the temple is rebuilt, worship and teaching is restored. But there's just one last problem to overcome. Jerusalem and the temple is vulnerable to attack because the famous walls that protect the city were still in ruins. So we turn from the book of Ezra to the next book, the book of Nehemiah. Now, Nehemiah is still stuck in Babylon. He works for the king as his cupbearer. And one day, out of the blue, he asks someone for a report on what's happening in Jerusalem. And we pick up the story in Nehemiah chapter 1, when Nehemiah says this, verse 3. They came back and they reported to him, and they told me, the exile survivors who are left there in the province are in bad shape. Conditions are appalling. The wall of Jerusalem is still rubble. The city gates are still cinders. When I heard this, I sat down and wept. I mourned for days, fasting and praying before the God of heaven. Once again, like Zerubbabel and Ezra, he was shown favour by the king who sent him to Jerusalem with a team to rebuild the walls. He set off for Jerusalem. Now, just a side note here. God can use any person and any circumstance for his will and his plan. Can I encourage you? Can I just encourage you today? Don't limit God. Some of the most evil psychopathic kings showed favour to these guys, so his purposes would be fulfilled. And in your life today, God can use that difficult person in your life to get you where he wants to get you. They don't have to be believers. He can use anything. He can use a pandemic. He can use unemployment, anything for his best plan for you. Anyway, back to the story. So Nehemiah goes with another team, leaves Babylon and goes to Jerusalem. And we pick up the story in Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 6. It says, so we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half of its height, for the people worked with all of their heart. So in just a short time, a relative short time, they're halfway through the rebuild. And that's good news, but then everything changes. Let's jump to verse 10. Verse 10, meanwhile, the people in Judah said, the strength of the labourers is giving out, and there is so much rubble that we cannot rebuild the wall. Also, our enemies said, before they know it or see us, we will be right there among them and will kill them and put an end to the work. Then the Jews who lived nearby, God's people, came and told us 10 times over, wherever you turn, they will attack us. So things started well. In just a couple of weeks, the wall simply shot up. But then the people started opposing the work, specifically Sanballat and Tobiah. Now, not got time today, but take some time to read how they just relentlessly criticised, threatened and opposed the work. Two guys who had a hidden agenda. Now, they thought they were serving God. They thought they were the good guys in this story, but the fruit from their lives showed otherwise. Negativity, grumbling and criticising. And what was the result? Well, that produced a fruit. It produced discouragement amongst those working so hard to make a difference. And people were just getting discouraged. Just another warning. I don't believe it was a coincidence that the walls were half their height when weariness and disappointment set in. Can I just say, be careful when rebuilding. When you get to that place, those halfway places, I've seen it time and time again. People started well with excitement and with energy and with purpose, but it's usually at the halfway stage when the rebuild isn't finished yet. It's at that stage so often it's easy just to throw in the towel, and people do that in relationships, they do that in jobs, they just get tired of the job, they just get fed up with it. And I can testify they definitely do that in churches as well. There's that early excitement, then there's momentum and team spirit. Can I encourage you today, if you're in a situation, in a church, in a job situation, in a relationship, and you sense that momentum is slowing down, don't quit. Don't quit when all of that good stuff wears off. Hey, if God tells you to move, to finish and break ties there, then yeah, do it, and do it with all of your heart. But if there's negativity or maybe even unforgiveness in your heart, just take a moment, just take a week, take a bit of time, check your heart before you rebuild somewhere else. Yeah. So today I want to look at just that one verse very briefly for time's sake in Nehemiah chapter 4. We've already read it. After the rebuilding had started, it says in verse 10, Nehemiah 4, meanwhile, the people in Judah said, the strength of the labourers is giving out, and there is so much rubble that we cannot rebuild the wall. Yeah, rubble, trouble. Whenever anything has been broken or crushed, you always have the remains, the debris or rubble of the old left over before you can rebuild the new. And that was an extra burden for God's people. Every time they went out to work, they were reminded of their defeat and their disgrace. They were reminded of their past, of their disobedience and God's judgment. Every bit of rubble was a discouragement, and it was wearing them out. There was too much rubble to deal with. And until they dealt with the rubble, they could not build the new. And you and I today, until you and I deal with some of the rubble in our lives, we will never be able to move on to the rebuild that God has planned for us. And often we don't recognize it, but our lives quickly fill up with old rubble. And there's 4 types of rubble I've had to deal with in my life over the years. I'm going to share those with you now. The first is old thinking rubble. Old thinking rubble. It often shows itself in negativity and lack of faith talking. I just want to say, this past week, I've had a couple of messages, emails and texts, really encouraging us over last week and what happened at the Rex Cinema when we all met together. And as we talk about that and talk about this new season as a church, as we chat and message and talk of the new thing God is doing, it creates, it produces, it generates faith. You know, it produces something. It produces faith. Paul said in Romans 10:8, the word is near you. It's in your mouth and in your heart. You know, it's important what we think, and it's important what we speak out. It can make all the difference. Just one encouraging word produces, it generates. However, you know as well as I know, the opposite is also true. The opposite produces negativity, criticism, and things also produces. It creates fear, which leads to despair. You've met the person that, you know, hey, so how's the new job? Oh, it's a drag. The money isn't good. I'm not happy there. Or alternatively, when somebody says, well, you know, it was an answer to prayer. It's challenging, yes, but I'm staying positive. I'm trusting for increase. That produces something. 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5, one of my favourite verses, says, take every thought captive. Why? Because, you know, we're to be careful of those things that we think about, because those things turn into words. As the old Chinese proverb goes, watch your thoughts, because your thoughts become your words. And watch your words, because they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. And watch your character, because your character becomes, finally, your destiny. Remember Ezra? He gently rebuked the people for taking old thinking into a new situation. Why? Because their destiny was at stake. So that's the first thing, old thinking rubble. Next, old relationship rubble. Friend, today there are some people who can't go where you're going into that new season. God loves them. Jesus died for them. But their journey is just a different way. And you'll see this time and time again. And I want to encourage you, you know, don't try, to convince them. Don't spend your time begging or, God forbid, compromising. There's a key chapter in Nehemiah chapter 6 when Sanballat and Tobiah keep asking for a meeting. They keep pestering Nehemiah over and over again. We want to talk about this. We want to discuss this. We don't agree with this. And eventually Nehemiah just responded. He sent a message saying, I can't leave the wall for you guys. I'm doing a good work. God bless you. Be blessed on your journey. But I'm not leaving what God has called me to do, because I'm called to go this way. And whenever there's a rebuild, I've noticed that relationships sometimes will change, and some will go and some will be added and birthed into your life. The third, old practices rubble. Again, we've kind of covered this, but in any new season, in any new rebuild, you'll be tempted to say, do you know what? I've never done it this way before. Which kind of should be obvious. That's why it's called a new thing. That's why it's called a new season. And if that's you today, I just want to encourage you, take a big shovel to those old things, those old practices, those maybe old habits that pull you back, those thoughts that continually drag you down, that turn into actions and practices that are just not worked in the old. So why would you bring them into the new? And lastly, old disappointment rubble. Old disappointment rubble. It's amazing how living a life continually disappointed can hijack your future. Somebody once said disappointment can leave you either bitter or better. And remember the story that we've been covering over these last 3 times together. Each one of the heroes we've looked at started in deep, deep disappointment. We've read that Nehemiah heard the news about the walls of Jerusalem, and it says he wept for days. He was in deep despair and disappointment. But here's the difference. The disappointment became the driving force to seek God and ask God how he should be involved and what he should do, to step up and make a difference, to play his part in this great story. Life Church, the next season as a church is going to be one of rebuilding. In fact, it really has already started. And if you're part of that or not, whether you're part of that or not might depend on whether you can move some of the rubble out of your life. And I know I am daily. No, seriously, I am daily taking a shovel to some of the rubble that lies around my life right now. I'm daily shoveling out rubble from my mind with God's help. Rubble like, what will people think if we do it this way? Am I failing? Am I succeeding? How is the building going? Do I have what it takes to lead these people? Will people turn up or will they not turn up? There's not enough of this and there's not enough of that. How? Why do I take the effort and the time to shovel the rubble? Because at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about Jesus. It's all about him. It's not about my comfort or my happiness or my life, but it's all about him. In closing, 2,500 years ago, these people were consumed in building a temple and restoring a city. And by the way, Nehemiah dealt with the rubble trouble as the good news and finished the work in just 52 days. Zerubbabel took 23 years. Ezra, it took a year, and in just 52 days. And in the middle of all of the challenges, the plans of the purposes of God were being fulfilled. Even when Nehemiah couldn't see the big picture. Because what? Because it was really all about God's plans and all about Jesus. That's why from the moment Ezra got the word from Haggai, and from the minute Zerubbabel left for Jerusalem, and even before Nehemiah got involved, they were all going to succeed. It was all going to happen. Why? Because it was all about Jesus. He was at the center of it all. And when you put Jesus at the center, when he is at the very center of your decisions, your plans, your calendar, even your finances and job and family, in the center of your rebuild, you simply join this long list of believers, of God followers, whose lives meant something even in the middle of troubles and broken times. And that's that confidence that Jesus has got me, that it's all going to be okay. I'm putting him first, so I believe he's got this. That's what you need in your life today. Friend, today, he's got you. He's got your family and your job and your future. Life Church, hey, Life Church, he's got us. It's okay. We're right where he wants us, and it's time to rebuild. Will you watching this today, if you're part of Life Church, will you be a Nehemiah, an Ezra, a Haggai, or a Zechariah? Take your pick, but will you take your place in this great story that God is building at this time? Because it's not about me or you or temples or churches or building or programs. No, it's all about Jesus, for his glory and for his fame. Whatever has been in the past, my friend, today, will you join us? Let's rebuild together.
Thank you, Paul, for that extremely relevant message. I think especially at the moment as we're all coming out of lockdown and kind of looking to rebuild many aspects of our life, it's extremely helpful and timely. If you want to dig a bit deeper into what Paul has said today, then stay tuned for our food for thought questions at the end. Also, if you'd like to join a Life Local group for community and for sharing and just to get to know people in the church a bit better, please visit our website, lifechurchwinslow.org. For now, however, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we hope to see you at the same time next week.